This is Jason Anderson, and we are calling to order the special town council meeting. It is February 1st, 2022. It is currently 7:01 p.m. For roll call purposes, all council members are in attendance. Mr. Wood is on remote, and Ms. Wakefield is trying to log in remotely right now. Moving forward in the agenda, we'll move on to item 3, interviews of board commission applicants. First up is 3A, Daniel Toth. Please come forward. Just make sure the microphone is on. So you're seeking reappointment to the Permanent Building Commission as a regular member. The term will run from December of 2021 through December of 2024. Can you tell us a little bit about your time on the Permanent Building Commission and why you're seeking a reappointment?
Yep, I've been on about, I think, around 7 years now. I got a background in the trades. I've been a carpenter by trade for 32 years now, and have a lot to offer. Been construction manager on quite a few projects up to in the 20-something $million range, schools, colleges, as well as a lot of small stuff, residential stuff, a lot of local things. So in my career, I kind of moved on from building and owning my own construction company and being a union carpenter as well to actually teaching it. So I sought my education certificate, started to teach in the tech schools, actually taught in the prison for 10 years, and continue to move on with that. So I have a lot of construction background, and I think that it would be good for the town for 10 years to, got a feedback here. So it's good for the, I'd like to just offer what I know to the town and utilize it, I like to stay in the trades. I don't want to lose it. It's still part of me. It'll always be part of me. So it's fun to do. I enjoy it. I feel it's the right noble thing.
I can completely understand where you're coming from. I myself been in the auto repair industry for 30 years now. I actually got my VOTEC teaching certification back in 2009. Same thing, looking to pass the knowledge on. Having someone who's got your background, your skill set, and your knowledge on a Permanent Building Commission, I believe, is a true asset, especially, like you said, you're a construction manager, and the Permanent Building Commission does look over, as you know, looks over a lot of the bigger projects we have. I will open up for any questions, comments from council members.
Just real quick, I'm the liaison of the Permanent Building Committee, so I've been working with Mr. Toth for that 4 years I've been on there, and it's a good group that's on that committee right now to oversee these projects we got coming up. So I'd like to see him continue on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grandelski.
Yeah, you guys are going to be busy, but a lot coming up.
Oh, yeah. It's taken a while, but it's coming.
Yeah, but then again, even during the process, too, that's a lot going on, so we appreciate your expertise.
Thank you.
Everybody there has been. Sorry about that. No, I like your experience and very helpful.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, the committee's got quite a lot of different tradesmen, for those who don't know. Right now, it's pretty well versed. You got masons, plumber, HVAC, pipe fitters, carpenter, mason, got them all. So that's good. Hopefully we can kind of keep that. People are going to move on, and that's the way it goes. But luckily, I've been involved when you get into the management side. A carpenter, if anyone knows one or has been one, we become the contractor. It's kind of, you're there from the beginning and you're there to the end. So we become the go-to guy, and that's why most carpenters become contractors. And that's where I think it's helpful, because I'm not a plumber, but I'm involved with it. I manage a lot of those things, so it's helpful to know. I got a good knowledge base of what's going on and what other trades should be doing, even though I'm not the licensed guy to do it. So.
Do you think, how about support from town council and the town side? Is that adequate, or where, enough resources to help you guys out?
Yeah, when we need help, we call on it. Kevin's always there, so he's pretty much at every meeting, probably more than me. So I'd have to say, he reports every time, and if he's pretty much involved with the meetings, he's sitting right in there with us talking. So it's real time. I have no complaints at all, and if we need something, we get it, or we get the attention we need, as far as I'm concerned.
Ed, when you speak, can you speak into your mic and come forward? Because the online is having a hard time hearing you. So if you could do that, that would be helpful.
Any other questions, comments from council?
I just want to say thank you for your service and
Thanks.
continuing on, and the expertise is really important. Like you said, being a carpenter, you do kind of oversee the whole thing. And my husband's not a carpenter, but he's done carpentry and roofing and electrical, and so I know exactly what you mean.
Mhm.
So thank you for stepping up.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood or Ms. Wakefield, do you have anything?
Nope, I'm good.
No questions or comments.
Thank you. Anything further?
That's it. I just hope to be reappointed and stay on the team and continue on with the service.
Again, I echo what everybody's been saying. We thank you for your service. It's greatly appreciated. And we will be voting on your reappointment next Tuesday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Agenda Item 3B, Michael Huco. He is seeking appointment to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate member.
Flip to the back of that page.
There are currently 3 alternate member vacancies with a term of 3 years, in which 2 vacancies would run from January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2023, and 1 would run from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2025. Mr. Hugo, if you could just give us a little bit of background why you're seeking appointment to Planning and Zoning Commission, and how you feel you could be an asset to the commission.
Well, I spent 43 years at Electric Boat in the planning department. Many of those 43 years was a planning supervisor. Near the end, I was the lead planning supervisor to report to the president weekly on the progress of different projects to the president and his staff. I spent over 30 years in the Dayville Fire Company. 12 years as the fire chief of Dayville. I spent many years on the board of the Dayville Fire District. I am presently on the board as the vice president of the Dayville Fire District. So with all that background and knowledge, I feel that I can extend some knowledge to the Planning and Zoning Commission on what I've learned throughout the years. I am retired now. I've been retired going on 6 years now. So I have time on my hands, and I figure I can make it useful and pass on my knowledge that I learned in all these years at Electric Boat and at the Dayville Fire Company.
Thank you. Council members, questions, comments? Ms. Barclay.
What is your vision for Killingly?
To keep it growing, but to keep it as beautiful as it is, to make sure the right businesses are coming into it and they're safe and sound, and that, you know, they're properly run, not just go out there and accept anything. Let's make sure we get the right businesses in the town so it grows and keeps the beauty that it is Killingly. I've been a resident here all my life. I mean, even when I worked at Electric Boat, I lived in Killingly. I traveled both ways every day, so Killingly's my home.
So how would you coincide with the vision of keeping the area beautiful?
Getting in the right businesses. You don't want to just draw in the businesses that's going to ruin the countryside and stuff, and that, ruin the environment.
Thank you.
Mr. Whitehead?
Yes. What do you consider a good business? What types?
What types? The storage, I noticed, I was at the last zoning, the storage is a good one. I'd like to see more restaurants in the area, or something like Putnam did, not the antiques, but to build up maybe the town and the outskirts. We do have malls around here with open businesses that, with Old Navy coming in, maybe draw in a couple more, those types of stores, so people come into Kinley and shop and stuff. So stores, businesses, it's, factory businesses, it's hard to say what we can draw. I don't think we need an elaborate, mall, or elaborate warehouse in here, but, who knows? You gotta see who wants to come into town. But I love to see more restaurants in town to
Right.
draw people into the town.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy?
I have one. How would you negotiate the two different concepts of earning money for the town and not putting something in someone's backyard?
I think there's areas in the town that we can utilize that, we can put into good use and not into somebody's backyard, like you says, in somebody's backyard. One property that comes to mind is off on 395, where I guess at one time there was a warehouse thinking of going in there, and there's several other options that, I think that there's around that we can use to utilize, the area, but keep the beauty of Kinley too. We don't want to give it up where we're giving up all the woods and we're just one big factory, or one big warehouse in the town now.
Thank you. One recommendation I would have is we do have the Plan of Conservation and Development, which we do every 5 years. And that is 10 years. And that is something that's a valuable asset to kind of go through to see the direction that the town is already looking at to go in. It's a valuable asset. Anyone who's coming on a planning and zoning, I would absolutely recommend diving into that, just to get a feeling for the direction the town has already decided it wants to go.
Okay, sounds good.
Mr. Wood, any questions, comments?
Just a quick comment. I do remember you, Chief Hugo, there when I first started EMS there, and I might get a little flack from this there, but I do remember you fondly there. You were one of my favorite fire chiefs to deal with, so I do want to at least thank you for your service throughout the time at the Dayville Fire Company.
Thank you.
And I think we lost Ms. Wakefield. Ms. George?
How do you feel about the state of Connecticut's push to take away zoning rights from the municipalities? There's a group, have you heard of Desegregate Connecticut?
No, I have not.
Last year at the legislation cycle, they had about 13 different bills they were trying to push through. And what they're basically trying to do is take the rights of municipalities to decide what goes in their towns. How do you feel about that? Do you think it should be municipal control, or do you think the state should override what the town wants?
We know our area. It should be us that decides what this town needs, or what this town, they can make suggestions, and, I'll gladly listen to anybody. But it should be our decision on what comes into our town, not somebody in Hartford or Washington or in California. I don't care. But
Thank you for that.
Thank you. And I don't see Ms. Wakefield. Mr. Grandelski?
Well, with your experience with the fire department, that was, you covered a lot of town, you see it in a different light in that respect. That's a different respect that not too many people see. You see things at their worst.
Michael,
Yes.
Closer.
You see things at their worst, so I think that's a good asset that, all those years you've had with the fire department to move into something like this.
we used to review, when I was chief, I used to review the drawings for any businesses coming in to make sure they met any fire department requirements. And I don't know if that's still happening or not, but I want to give that, I want to give that my, point of view, my knowledge from there. So we, make sure they're safe and everything.
Well, did you go through and actually have a tour of some of the facilities when you were fire chief?
Yes. Every year, you're supposed to tour every business in your district. It's a requirement. So we used to, and we would drill, like the Lake Road generating plant, we would drill twice a year with them to, to make sure. And we would tour Frito-Lay, we would tour Coats. Every year, we would make sure we line it up, mostly this time of year, because what else you gonna do but in the winter then? But you tour to see what changes has come, and you can pre-plan your plans before an incident happens. So the minute, if you have an incident there, you know what to do.
So with that background, it's good, moving into this. Now into the planning stages way before some of that, so hopefully we don't have any problems.
Correct.
Thank you. Ms. Wakefield is back on. Do you have any questions or comments, Ms. Wakefield?
So Mr. Hugo, so I understand that, yeah, as chief, you had to go into all these different businesses, but the reality is you're looking at it from a first responders kind of perspective as opposed to planning and zoning. And it's honest, and having, and I know you know as well as I do that I have a definite family heritage for first responders. Sometimes that's a totally different perspective from being the one that understands where you need to take your town. Planning and zoning definitely got a definite, it definitely has its thumbs in which direction killing is gonna go. And it's not always the same field that first responders respond to. And I know Mr. Wood would probably have the same perspective as well as I do, but I understand where you came from. You have a very distinct background with EB and stuff, but sometimes planning and zoning has a whole different thing that you have to, I don't know how else to put it, but sometimes it comes from you have to come from a totally different perspective than somebody that's looking at it from that first responder.
Well, you got to look at it several ways. I looked at, you got to look at it in your planning. You got to put on your planning hat when I'm building a submarine or anything. When you're looking at a drawing, okay, let me put my planning hat on. Is it going to be, a good for the community? Is it going to be something we need? Is it going to be beneficial to the town? Does it meet the requirements of the town? And then you got to put your first responder hat on to make sure it's safe for the town. You don't want to bring in something that's, not going to be safe for the environment or the citizens of the town of Killenly.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions?
Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, I guess like on that note, on Tammy's note, so when I go, and I'm new, when I go to the planning and zoning meetings, seems like they have a very clear agenda already of how they want the town to be. And I think that's what Ulu was trying to get at. Do you know what that is? And my understanding, and anyone here is welcome to correct me, is that the things that are zoned a certain way, they want to keep them a certain way, and then you've got your rural and your commercial and your industrial, and they want to do the growth with that kind of already in mind. Like, are you on board with that?
Yes, yes.
Okay. That's just for clarification.
Okay.
Thank you. That is one of the things that is outlined in the POCD. Talks about spot zoning, different zoning districts and stuff like that. Any further questions? Thank you for coming forward. We'll be voting on your appointment next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Moving on the agenda, next item up is 3C. Lori Zornato is seeking appointment to the Board of Rec as an alternate member. There are currently 2 alternate member vacancies, in which one term would run from 3/1/2022 through 2/29 of 2024. Now, Ms. Colorio, 3/1/22, we would be appointing her before the term begins.
Correct, the term would still begin March 1st. It's still fine.
Okay, all right, just want to clarify
Typically,
that.
you would appoint somebody before, to be able to
After the
fulfill the
term.
entire term. We've had so many vacancies that we've not been able to do that, so.
Okay. This is the first time I've actually seen that in 4 years.
It's a good thing.
Yes, it is. Ms. Zornato, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you're seeking appointment to the Board of Rec?
All right, I'll start over. I'm a resident of Killingley for going on 24 years. I raised all my 3 kids here. They're all grown now, so I find after the last few years that I have time to move forward and help out in areas that are important to me. And so just this past year, I am thinking about what now? What do I do? The community center is very dear to my heart and very dear to my family's heart. They pretty much grew up there, so that seemed like a natural fit for me to be participating in something that was just very integral part of my growing up and my kids growing up in my family. So they've participated in the sports. They've participated in music. We've done many things through the Parks and Rec. You may or may not have seen me sing on stage at many events. So I'm very familiar with the programming, and my interest is just wanting to continue to support that and keep programs for our young people, our families, our seniors, and our veterans, if there's space for that, in the vision of Westfield coming up. So.
Thank you. One of the visions we did have when we started looking into moving the community center over to the Westfield Ave location was trying to bring back the Danielson Veterans Coffee House to
Yeah.
Killenly. It is still something we'd like to do, however, that's up to them whether they come back or not.
Mm-hmm.
I will open up for questions, comments. Mr. Grandelski.
With your kids being involved with the old community center, now we have a brand new one going on,
Mhm.
which is, opens the door to a different facility, different type of programming, but you've been participating in the programs, you were participating with your kids, so you have a good background with all of that. So
Mhm.
it's, now you're looking at a different position to
Mhm.
try to direct where it might go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the background is going to be very helpful for this position.
Okay. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just saying that you know, your involvement
Oh, yes.
prior to is very helpful, your experience. You were already there. So now you're taking it more as a managerial type scenario.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Wood or Ms. Wakefield, any questions, comments?
Yeah, I do have a question here. I know you mentioned there, you have like a vision for our community center. Would you mind elaborating a little bit more on that? I'd love to hear some of your thoughts there. Of course, I'd love to hear any citizens' thoughts on this.
Oh, boy. I think the community center is a place where we come together, and there's lots of need for that right now, especially right now, where it can be enriching and it can be supportive and it can be, I have crazy vision, somehow connecting young kids with our seniors. Somehow, I don't know how to do it, but there's research there that says it's really fabulous for both populations. I'd love to bring our theater back to the glory that it once was. I might be biased, but I'd love to see that. And that's not just for Killingwood, that's for we had people coming from far away to come to see our little show at the, our little old high school, So the potential is there. And I know there are people that are just chewing at the bit. Now, we have got fabulous sports programs for our kids too, no doubt, and that they're doing fabulous with that. The Parks and Rec are doing very, very well in this town, so I just would like to see it continue. And with space, with that, it's not perfect. No, it's not perfect, but with space over there, there's lots to do for everybody. There should be something there for everyone in our town if they choose to use it.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Wakefield? I don't know if she's muted or not responding. Okay. Oh,
I have
sorry.
So in your vision for the community center, since it's going to be larger, what kind of programs would you like to introduce? Social activities, theater activities, sports activities? What do you envision adding or maybe contributing to the community center?
Well, I certainly would be supportive, but I'm not the person to be thinking about what sports we need. That I'm sure there's lots of feedback. I think having programs for kids that might not necessarily fit into the sports programs, we've got, again, something for everybody. I had a lot of time to talk to seniors, sitting out on election day, talking to seniors, so which was really nice for me. But we could do better to serve our seniors in town, especially now after 2 years of so much isolation, and that particular population is suffering from isolation. So I know they're doing some great things, but I would like to see that promoted and outreach, because there are people that may not be able to get to the community center or don't know about a program, or maybe we can combine something with the library or the agricultural program, gardening, older people, younger, it's endless what we could do. Affordable, obviously, we can't shoot the moon, but with more space, I think we could dream a little bit bigger. At least I can.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Ms. Wakefield.
Hi, sorry, my mute thing's getting all kind of confused. So Mrs. Ornato, I was just at the last Parks and Rec Commission meeting. I know you girls and know your family was very, 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 very active in the dramas. One of the best things that I think that might come from our moving our community center to where we're going to go with it is the fact that we're going to go from like 200 seats to 800 seats. And so the potential of more people being exposed to the arts in the theaters and honest with you, there's a lot to be, the fact that we're going to be taking over a lot of those fields, and those fields are going to be used out in the back for sports. And I know Mr. Whitehead's children in the past have been very active in our sports programs, along as well as my children, and a number of other counselors and Board of Ed members. Their children have been very active in our town and in our sports programs. And there's a lot. The Board of Rec is a very, 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 very active board and commission. Not quite as active as conservation, but there's a lot of work to be done, and the potential is there for if you're really super energetic, it's a great commission to be part of.
That sounds great.
Thank you, Ms. Wakefield. Any further questions, comments? Do you have any further questions, comments for us?
I just would like to say professionally, I work with families and children, and know from my work as a social worker that when we do have healthy communities, when there's programs that help after school and just augment the hard work that our schools are doing, that works for everybody. Less stress on moms and dads, and maybe there may be a after-school homework club or things like that the schools just simply can't do. The community center is a place that just helps support that for our citizens here. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll be voting on your appointment next Tuesday. Oh, wait.
Yeah, so I had a question.
Yes.
How do you feel about patriotic events, like celebrating Flag Day, celebrating the American flag, July 4th?
As a town-hosted
Yeah.
barbecue event, we've been doing those.
Okay.
And I believe that they've been very, very successful with 5Ks, and I think we've missed 2 years of certainly the summer ones. I think we have lots of events that attract so many, not just our town, just so I love to see that when people come to the town, because there's image issues sometimes, and I love, and unless you live here, you don't appreciate the gems that we have on Main Street, and I can't even think, barbecues, and not sure what else maybe fall in that category, but I think that's wonderful when we bring people together to celebrate things that are important to them. So I love that. I love that, because I remember when we didn't have a red, white, and blue barbecue, when it was the, little trail in the scary area over at Odell, and it's just turned into something memorable, so.
Thank you. Do you have any further?
No,
Okay.
I'm-
All right, we'll
Thank
be
you.
voting on your appointment next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on the agenda, next item up is 3D, and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name, Brian Tavilla.
Nice. Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
You're seeking appointment to the Housing Authority as a regular member. There's currently one regular vacancy with a term of 5 years, and which would run from January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2023. Oh, excuse me, 2025. I really need glasses. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you're seeking appointment to the Housing Authority?
Sure. So, again, my name's Brian. My family and I just moved. We bought a house here in Danielson, right up the street, and I realized where we were living in Mass, I wanted to get involved with the community, and sorry, I'm like nervous now that I'm up here. It was easier over there. So I wanted to get involved with the community, and I saw that this was vacant. I can identify a lot with the housing authority for personal reasons, but I kind of care about that aspect everywhere I go. So I think it would be good experience for my development professionally and here in town. I genuinely don't know a lot about the inner workings of it. I'm pretty green to this, but I'm a person in long-term recovery, so I lived at the shelter for many years, came through the whole program. So I kind of saw that end of things, and so I see there's an opportunity to kind of balance things out. I came here for Mass because the house was 2 1/4, and I got land, it was beautiful. And I've fallen in love with the town too. It's just the whole area. And we're excited to be here as a family, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. And I kind of feel like this is a good place to start,
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Barclay.
I'm going to ask you the same question that Patty brought forth about looking at the desegregation of Connecticut and taking away the zoning rights from the towns.
Sure. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the first I've heard of it. I really wouldn't want to speak on something that I haven't read about personally. If it's as black and white as that, I would prefer the town have control over that. That's where the heartbeat. We understand what the community needs. And as it was stated before, I think it's good to have outsider view, because maybe sometimes you don't know what's best for you. But at the end of the day, I want to know who comes into my house. So I think if it is as simple as stated, it should be municipal.
And also, looking at Killingly's plan of conservation, how would that be in line with your Section 8 housing?
That's a great question. So I started power studying as much as I could find online over the last, since I brought the application last week. I haven't been able to really get up to date with things. One thing that the Connecticut, it's a project on housing population based on the census. But that's really mathy. It's not about specific locations. I would love to learn about it though. I think, so Section 8 is always a hot button topic, right? Because there's the stereotype of people that it brings in, which is understandable. Typically, financial issues come with other things too, but the reality is that Connecticut is also becoming one of the oldest states in the country as well, and so Section 8 doesn't just mean, underserved families. It means Graham sometimes. So we have to look at it from a big picture lens, I think, at least. And it's challenging. You have a lot of beautiful land. You don't want to just be throwing up shabby apartments, So I can understand the concern for that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to speak to something you said about the Section 8 housing, and unfortunately there is a stigma that goes along with it. And it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of families that are helped out by Section 8 housing that it could be, I'll speak from my upbringing, single mom, handicapped, 4 kids. And if it wasn't for Section 8 housing, I don't know how we would have got by. So there is a need for social services. There is a need for Section 8. And it is unfortunate that the stigma tends to follow everyone. But I completely agree with what you're saying there.
I grew up in Section 8 as well, and I also see the challenge that my mother faces trying to get off of the Section 8, which, so to say that I'm coming into this like as a backdoor channel to try to serve my bigger purpose in life is probably accurate, but I'm really concerned with just the overall understanding of how we manage as a society. And so Section 8 is easy to kind of look at and kind of be like, no, this is what we need to focus on. But every other person that I interviewed in the room plays into that Section 8, because if we are able to help the families, we can give them something to do at the community center, or we can help them have employment at the stores and local businesses. And, I think the reality is, though, it's challenging. We're having a identity crisis as a nation, and we're facing a lot of issues when it comes to big picture items. But here in this small town, what matters to us is making sure that we're safe, stable, and secure. And housing, I believe we should all have pretty reasonable access to at some point. So it's not just about the Section 8 vouchers themselves, as much as it's putting in place reasons for that Section 8 voucher to stop there as well. It sounds like you've had success. I'd like to think after a few wrong turns, I had some success myself. So it's, it doesn't have to go generationally, hopefully.
Thank you. Mr. Whitehead.
What is your vision?
So, again, I'm unprepared simply because I'm so new to this area. We moved here in June, and I'm still very much getting acclimated. I haven't had a chance to look at the numbers and stuff. I'm a Massachusetts native, so my wheelhouse is Worcester. I do a lot of community advocacy for the homeless population and underserved out there because of the situation going on with the programs that offer help, quote unquote. So that's kind of my wheelhouse. I do plan, and if any suggestions you guys have, to look into these topics, I would love to. A perfect vision is that you don't know which houses are Section 8. You have a housing authority that takes pride in what it offers, but also understands that we cannot help every person that walks through the door, maybe. But yeah, I'm just not familiar enough with the area, to be completely honest.
Thank you. Ms. Barclay?
Have you spoken to Carol Green from the Housing Authority?
No. In fact, so this is escalated quickly. So I just wanted to get involved with the community, and I was actually on a website that promotes kind of like running for local offices and stuff, and it mentioned that Connecticut, Killingly, open seat at the Housing Authority. And so I really didn't think I was going to get this far, nor did I think I was going to be sitting here getting interviewed. So I have not had a chance to speak to anybody other than Jacqueline, the executive.
Janice Robertson.
Yeah.
Janice.
Yeah.
Janice and Michael.
That's about the extent of my communication.
Thank you.
Ms.
Are
George?
there any social programs in Mass that you see lacking here that you would want to see brought to Killingly through your work?
Again, that's a great question. What I will say is our son already, I feel like, has more opportunity here than he did in Webster, so that's where we moved from. I don't think anything that is going on in Massachusetts is really something to idolize. From my perspective, my experience. Again, these are topics that I really want to kind of look into to get a better feel for. But I really think it starts with it's not just about the housing, it's the heating assistance. There's, you know, more community-based programs. I love the idea that was with the seniors working with the children. I think it's a multi-dimensional look at things. But people have done things right. I'm not trying to poo-poo everything that's been done up until now. Clearly, it's gotten us to this point, but I think everything is getting kind of renovated. It looks like by the numbers, we're getting older. The younger people are moving out. I mean, that's from like 2010 to 17. So I can imagine you guys are used to seeing some new faces around here based on what the lawyer at closing said. So maybe that'll change too, hopefully.
Thank you. Ms. Murphy.
So I think I heard you say this, but one of the things that I'm really interested in public housing, I grew up in it also, was that you couldn't get out of it. You could never get out of it because immediately they would, if you got a second job, they would tap your pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know like Ben Carson did a lot to say, no, you gotta wait 2 years and then you could save up and get out. So I think I heard you say, obviously not for elderly or disabled, but just for regular families who need a hand, that part of your goal would be a vision where they get out.
Yeah.
At some point, right? So that's accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I thought I heard that you say that.
Yeah, you know, I think it's there's a few real bad problems about it. The one about the lack of appropriate adjustment with your income to expenses. There's also in Worcester, the problem is there's a few. Oh, it's feedback.
No, it's, Tammy, can you mute your mic?
So in Worcester, there's a giant problem right now. We've been able to successfully corral the homeless population, secure funding for them to be housed, get them off the street, not just housing, but also like voucher programs to get clothing, assistance with the basic necessities. Nobody wants to rent, so there's a real landlord problem too that is associated with housing in Section 8. It's in my experience that you either have genuinely good people that are interested in working with the population because they see it as stable income every month from the government that never goes away as long as you do what you're supposed to do. So in a lot of ways, Section 8 or public housing assistance gets backhanded by the landlord or developers or whatever that side of the fence, because they paint it as this unbelievable high watermark that they have to achieve in order to have a house that is considered safe, right? And then there's just the experience of the tenants too. So it's tricky, but my belief and my hope is that it's not noticeable. It should just be there. It should be seamless. It should just kind of exist. Oh, we're putting in a new development over here. Okay, so 2 of the houses, this is what we're going to do, and everybody else, nobody has to know, and, you know, and it's possible. But making sure that those who own the property are on board with renting, that's the other part.
Thank you. Mr. Gronowski.
The Housing Authority, most of it, they have very limited Section 8 interaction. They do have some, but it's other entities that do with the Section 8. It's more of an elderly population at the facility. And people are looking to go there. It doesn't seem to be a stigma attached to it. That is an asset to this community. It's a well-run operation. and it's run on a shoestring. I mean, how Carol does it and the company, they really do a really good job. I mean, our grant person here is always looking for grants and things and whatnot, because the rent that they get, there's a lot of subsidy from the state. I don't know if there's too many people that are paying their own way over there. Almost everybody has some support, but it seems to be a nice operation. It's a clean facility. People are knocking on the door to get in there.
That's great.
It's a really nice, like I said, it's a really nice asset that we have in this town.
I appreciate that. And that's great. I mean, who better to learn from then? I mean, it's, I think it's really important that we are there for the elderly, and we make sure that we listen to them. And I saw that they commented on last month's minutes that they did a great job with the groundskeeping at the housing authority or something. So, that's a thing to be proud of. I know my grandmother's experience with housing has been not so great. She's now in a better location and things are better, but that can burden the family too. So I'm glad to hear that it's good, and I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Do you have any comments or questions for us?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and I really look forward to, at the end of the day, I'm happy to be a part of the town, and it's a beautiful area. Everybody's been super helpful, very nice, and we're grateful to put our roots down here. So even if this doesn't work out, I look forward to just being involved as much as I can in any way. So thank you.
Thank you.
For clarification, and this might be a Mary question, does that commission decide, who decides if it's elderly or homeless, or what percentage goes where?
So they predominantly are elderly. Our housing authority deals predominantly with, like Ed said, the elderly population. We really don't have a lot of Section 8. The housing authority doesn't necessarily determine where people go. That's landlords, developers, that's all of those components. That's not necessarily the housing authority's responsibility. However, if they do help administer some Section 8 housing vouchers, but they're not determining where these are. They help administer that program.
Yeah.
Yep, so the housing authority really works more on the operations of the actual housing complex, the elderly housing and the congregate housing that we have. Okay?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be voting on your appointment next Tuesday.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on in the agenda, next item up is 4, citizen statements and petitions pursuant to the Town Council's Rules of Procedure, Article 4, Section 2. All presentations by citizens shall be limited to an aggregate of 45 minutes, and each citizen's presentation shall not exceed 5 minutes unless otherwise indicated by a majority vote of the Town Council. Public comment can be emailed to publiccomment@killenlyct.gov or mailed to Town of Killenly, 172 Main Street, Killenly, Connecticut 06239, on or before the meeting. All public comment must be received prior to 2 p.m. the day of the meeting. Public comment will be posted on the town's website, www.killenlyct.gov. Ms. Colorio, did we have any submitted public comment?
Mary Clorio, Town Manager. Yes, we did receive 2 submitted public comments. The first one is from Arminda Hudon, 42 Lahome Street in Danielson. She submitted public comment in support of appointing Lori Zanardo for the Board of Recreation. The second public comment that was received from Teresa Barton, 655 Chestnut Hill Road. She submitted public comment in support of appointing Michael Huco to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and also supporting the appointment of Lori Zanardo to the Board of Rec as well. Those are the 2 public comments submitted.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, if there's anyone who would like to make any public comment, step up to the podium, state your name and address. Because this is a special town council meeting, any public comment has to be pertinent to the items on the agenda, which the items on the agenda would be the 4 applicants, and we're going to be having a Water Pollution Control Authority joint meeting. Is there any public comment? Last call for public comment. Seeing none, we'll move on in the agenda. Item 5, old business, and we have none. We will move on to item 6A, new business, Water Pollution Control Authority joint meeting. Dave, if you could come forward, please.
So Dave Kapp, our town engineer, he is the liaison to the Water Pollution Control Authority. The individual members were unable to make this meeting. We only currently have three members right now on our Water Pollution Control Authority. I can't even speak today. So that is a commission that definitely we're looking to seek anyone who might be interested in serving on that commission. So Dave, thank you for coming to represent the commission.
No problem. Thank you all, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Not sure if you have particular questions or if you want me to give an overview of what's going on, or being as none of the other members could attend tonight.
If you could give us an overview and just where we're at with the upgrade project.
Okay, fair enough. We have basically the upgrade project is completed. We have closed on the loan. It came in within budget. There's a few things that we need to complete down at the plant that were cut out of the upgrade due to when it was approved from the state in 2016, when the amount was authorized for the town to bond. From the time we were authorized from the state to the time we were authorized to go out to bid, there was some price increases, so we needed to remove some items from the original scope. In 2016 dollars, it was about $3 million that had to be removed. I'm not sure what the total value would be in today's dollars. I'm sure it would increase quite a bit. Mostly just maintenance to the buildings, roofs, doors, HVAC stuff, things of that nature. We focused on equipment, tearing down the incinerator building, as I'm sure you've all seen. Some minor odor control improvements, dewatering and new pumps, motors, controls, new generator, things of that nature. And Rogers Pump Station was also completed prior to the wastewater treatment facility, which I sleep better at night. I don't know about anybody else. And it was near enough to a catastrophic failure. We're looking at doing some I&I improvements to our collection system. We have recently completed a report or a study which outlines some areas that need to be addressed in our collection system, from manholes and vents and some pipe damage as well. The theory is to reduce the amount of groundwater and stormwater that's entering our collection system, to help to improve the water quality. We're looking at doing a project on Buck Street, which is a continuation of the Prospect area's sewer that many of you are familiar with. To be the next phase in that. We're also looking at a project on Reynolds Street between Broad and Main, which would also not only include a sewer line replacement, but also some improvements to the underground box culvert in that area. I think
That's a tricky, the Reynolds Street is an interesting.
that is.
Drainage and the sewer, and they're all interfering with each other.
Yeah, it's complicated. Then with the retaining wall that's collapsing and everything goes underneath, not everything, but the box culvert goes underneath the church and across Academy Street and under the firehouse and under the attorney's offices behind us and out to across the railroad tracks. And we've also recently, this isn't really WPCA related, but we've completed underground investigation of the box culvert from the river by St. James Church all the way up to Center Street. And there have been a few areas that need immediate repair on that as well. I'm sure everybody's happy to hear that. But I think in a nutshell, that pretty much outlines what we've done in the past several years at the wastewater plant and some of our plans going forward in the future. Again, if there are particular questions or if there's anything Mary would like me to address or anybody.
I remember not in too far back there, spoke about there was some infiltration issues.
Correct.
Where are we at with that?
Yeah, that was part of the I&I study I'd mentioned, where we had, again, we completed a study on it last year, and we're going to be looking at doing some improvements to that and building some money into our capital budget for this year for further investigations of areas and also doing some repair work. Again, some manholes and some of the vents on the cross-country lines near the river have rotted off, so I know we're getting water in there. And preliminary estimates, we're probably looking at about $2 million worth of work phased in over a period of several years.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other, Mr. Grandelsky?
Mary, as far as funding going with the infrastructure bills and all of that, is there, how far along do we have to get, or do we have to wait for them to say we have a chunk of money before we can do some engineering? 'Cause, I mean, they're at a shoestring budget too down there. It's
Yeah, clearly. So, one of the things that we're watching very closely with the WPCA, there's been a fair amount of capital investment with the WPCA that has really, they have a lot of debt issuance right now with the WPCA. We did sewer main replacements or relinings probably close to 8 years ago at this point in time. And those were all out on 40-year loans. They were USDA projects. The Clean Water Fund that we just closed on, that's a $16 million loan that we just took out. And that's a 40-year commitment as well on that loan as well. So WPCA projects, the loan portions of those goes out for a fair period of time. So that really constrains the budget for adding large capital projects to it without having significant impact to the user rates, which we're very sensitive to given that we've just been increasing the sewer rates for a number of years in preparation for this, the impact of this facility upgrade. So, we are looking at what grant opportunities there might be arising, and the infrastructure bill may provide some relief on that we can go after some of that grant funding. We kind of keep a pretty close eye on what's coming out around the infrastructure bill. A lot of that is really right now being geared towards roads and bridges. I'm sure you all saw in the news recently that the president went to go visit a bridge in Pennsylvania and it collapsed 3 hours before he arrived. And so the infrastructure bill is, it's very unfortunate. There were 5 vehicles and in a city bus on that bridge when it collapsed. So our infrastructure with roads and bridges more specifically across the nation is in critical condition. And, we as a town also have bridges that, we are monitoring closely and having to do repairs on. And so we have to balance what are those greater needs between bridge infrastructure, road infrastructure, and wastewater and stormwater. So those are all infrastructure components that may have some eligibility under the federal infrastructure bill. So we keep monitoring those to see when the opportunity is and whether it's engineering that we go after and the engineering funds. Clearly, the more expensive part of this is the construction component, right? So the more that we can invest in getting shovel-ready plans to the extent that we're able to, then we want to be able to proceed with that. But one of the difficulties that you have in, it's a gamble when you are doing the in-house engineering and hoping to go for a grant for construction, because you don't know if you're going to get awarded that grant. And if you've just done the engineering and it gets shelved. And sometimes, look at the wastewater treatment plant. It took us 20 years to get that project off the hook, right? And get that project funded and going. 20 years, that means you're repeating that engineering many times over in order for you to get a project going. So ideally, we get to conceptual, where we have some basic estimation for cost on this, and then we can we get funding on it and proceed with design and then final construction. So that's ultimately what we're going to try and go after, I think, on all of these is, we come up to the best of our ability that conservative, conceptual design and cost estimation around the project that's needed, and then we go after that. So with the WPCA, that is something that Dave and Jen and I pay pretty close attention to, given that we understand the financial constraints around that budget and the ability or inability to absorb increases within the user rates. That's key going forward with that. And when you have debt that really you've just taken on and you have another 30 to 40 years to pay off on it, that's substantial. And one of the benefits that Killingly has always done when we do our debts, and we just did it with our clean water, is that when we pay off the debt, we pay it off in a format that's called level principal, which means it's unlike your mortgage payment. So most people take a mortgage payment and you pay the same amount every single month. The town doesn't do our debt that way. What we do is we pay the same amount in principal every single month. So we pay it off, we pay less interest over time, right? So we may be paying the same principal amount. So we take the principal amount that we have and divide it over the course of the time. But it means that we're paying it off actually we're weighting it more, we're paying it off in a sooner fashion in the earlier. So you end up paying less interest. So your actual payments that you make over time end up lessening over time. And so they drop over time because you're not paying as much in interest over time, which does give the town and the WPCA more capacity as these debt services get older. When they get, 20 years out, you've been able to drop that payment, that annual payment, more substantially, so you have room to take on some additional capital projects. But with the WPCA, it's large. The capital projects are large, right? Like, there's not a cheap way out of WPCA, right? Everything is expensive. And the debt service then is also a high number. And so it takes longer for us to see those lower numbers that are hitting the debt service that they're having to pay on an annual basis. So we have to be strategic in our planning for these larger capital projects like the I&I that he just talked about, and having to do a $2.5 million investment in just that component. We're going to have to be strategic about that. We're going to have to be strategic about the additional upgrades that need to be done to the plant that were removed from the facility upgrade. And that's a challenge because, everybody's been hearing about this facility upgrade, and many people have a concept that this facility is brand new. It's not, right? There are still parts of that facility that are original to the 1970s, and they've never received an update whatsoever. And the plant still has to function and operate. This upgrade was really geared strictly towards functionality and specific components. We were really looking at our nitrogen and our phosphorus on this facility upgrade. Those are very specific components of a wastewater treatment plant. It is not an entire overhaul of the entire plant. That would have been much more expensive. And just like when we did our sewer main replacements and our sewer main relining that we did 10 years ago, and we did, I want to say we have about $10 million out on that at this point in time. Those projects, everybody looked at that and went, oh, we all have all brand new sewer mains and we're done, right? And we replaced, not even a quarter of our sewer mains in the system, right? So it's a balance. We still have sewer mains that are going to have to be addressed, like on Buck Street and on Prospect Street as we phase out the other two phases of that project. But all of those, are, they're capital projects. They're heavier lifts, and we have to stage them appropriately to better manage what is the impact to the sewer user fees. And that doesn't mean that there's never going to be an increase to sewer user fees, because there's going to have to be. Operationally, costs continue to increase. That's not something that can just be absorbed. There's nowhere for it to get absorbed from except for user fees. The user fees is what pays the total cost of that fund. So we have to balance operational increases, standard operational cost increases with all of the material cost increases that we're seeing, and capital investments that we need to make. And looking for grants and going after infrastructure bills or other opportunities are key, but it's key to understand that many times those grants come to us with a portion of it being grant and a big chunk of it being loan. And you have to balance that out. What does that actually mean when you stack that loan in? What does it actually look like? And so we don't necessarily go after every grant that's out there, because the strings that go with it, or the ultimate benefit is not substantial enough when you stack in the loan component of it. And that was pretty long-winded, I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I think we need that, because that's an important facility down there, and we're doing work, and yes, it's necessary.
It's all very true, but I would just like to add a little bit to that, and just to put everything in so you can understand the scale of it. The town has over 55 miles of sewer line, sewer collection system. All the projects that we've talked about have done about 10 miles. And many of the lines in the downtown borough area are the oldest, many dating back to the turn of the last century. They're clay lines, so catastrophic failure could happen at any time. I mean, we monitor them, and we address the problem issues as soon as we can. But, they've outlived their useful life by over 50 years. Yeah, so I think that's important to note.
Thank you.
Do you
Ms.
have
Murphy.
bypass contingency plans set in place? Like, if you do burst a line or whatever, rather than just trucking.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave and I have talked about catastrophic failure and bypass options too many times, I think, over the years.
I mean, the biggest problem with that is we can have a plan in place, but we, quite frankly, we don't have bypass pumps at hand. Yes. I mean, we have a plan of how we're going to handle it, but.
You can even get an agreement ahead of time.
Mhm.
So.
Correct, yes. Yeah. And so far, we've been fortunate. We haven't needed to execute that. But as we were talking earlier with the Rogers Pump Station, I mean, we had pumps lined up. We had trucks all lined up. There were many sleepless nights.
There were quite a few phone calls that I got from Dave, and I went, please don't say Rogers Pump Station.
Yes, and it was, but anyway.
And that was when I was a finance director.
Yes.
So when I hear this, what I think is anything with the culvert or whatever, that's where you go for your ARPAs, because it's tied directly into the streets or whatever. But my question would be about the facilities. I know for myself, I always do the equipment first.
Mhm.
I don't care about the facilities, like keep the water running or whatever. Do you have, like, you've got your regular operating costs, and then you've got emergency costs? Like, at the end of the year, is it possible to dip into those for your facilities, like pick away at your windows, pick away at your?
It's essentially what we do,
That's
because
what you
we
do.
put money into the CNR account for equipment, and then we list projects or equipment that we need to do not routine maintenance, but needs to be replaced or upgraded. We try to build a little bit of that into every year's budget, so we can be more proactive as opposed to reactive.
Right.
And invariably or inevitably, however you want to look at it, there's always something that happens that we didn't anticipate. But we certainly try to keep our eye on that.
And we also look at, towards the end of every year, when we're getting into the, really the third quarter of the year, we start looking at, is there, so the WPCA does have a contingency budget that is built into their operating budget. Has that had to be accessed throughout the year? And is there small capital improvements that could potentially be done that would be able to help provide some relief valve, right? And so those, so $15,000 doesn't get you a roof, right? But it can do some of those smaller projects. So we do look at that to see if it's something that we can activate when we get towards the end of the year to be able to, accomplish some of those smaller things and just, take the easy fruits off from the bottom. So we do actively look at that annually to say, okay, like what do we really have that we've been holding off on that really is getting ready to reach that critical mass point that we need to take action on. So we don't try and spend just to spend. We never do that on any of our budgets. We don't ever spend just to spend, but it's really identifying what are those critical things that we might be able to get achieved and before it reaches critical mass emergency situation.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I know to the renovation, you have quite an extreme street view change with that incinerator portion coming down, and it looks
Correct.
more modernized and whatnot. And I know you've offered many times, and I've been there several times, is to get another tour of it when it's done now. Yeah. And maybe that's going to be on our goal setting next, and when we do that for a town-wide thing.
We can schedule. I had offered previously, when all of you guys retook office again, at any time, if anyone wants to have a tour, or if the collective group wants to do a tour of all of the facilities, or even just a couple of the facilities, please let me know. I'll gladly set that up. I think it's a great opportunity, though, to get through all of these buildings. I think, so many times we see these buildings all the time, right? So we know what we're looking at all the time. But many times people that, aren't in here all the time or only come in for a specific purpose, you don't necessarily see the entire facility. Or, many of you probably have never been to our wastewater treatment plant. Some of you have gone when we did the tour the last time, and Patty, we don't need to go into the dewatering facility because I'm not going in there either. Just saying, we don't need to go in the dewatering facility. Yeah, it's all right. But the rest of, so it gives you, I think it gives you as a great perspective especially when we're leading into the capital improvement plans and coming into budget season, because there are going to be potential requests around some of these buildings, and you're going to see things within our capital improvement plan, some of which has been in there time and time again. Right. And it's helpful to understand perspective on that. So I'll gladly, we've done them on weeknights, we've done them on Friday afternoons, we've done them on Saturdays, our team is pretty flexible. Mm-hmm. We come in whenever, and I'll get a bus and we can drive around town.
Thank you.
I think it would be great if we could do a tour of all the town facilities again as a council. I also think it might be a good idea to include board and commission members, because there may be some board and commission members that they're dealing with the projects for facilities while they're in this room, but may not have had the opportunity to go out and actually see what we have. That may help give them a different perspective as well.
We can open up to everybody. We'll have an entourage.
3 buses this time. Any other comments, questions? Mr. Grandowski.
I was talking to one of the board members prior to the meeting. He said he couldn't make this meeting tonight, and he emphasized we need members. They have nobody extra. If somebody doesn't show up, they can't meet a quorum. So we've got to get members to the WPCA. That's probably one of the most important right now. Mary mentioned it early on, but I want to emphasize that we need somebody's out there, and you want to,
Yeah, and to piggyback off, I think that's probably one of the commissions that people see as less glamorous, right? The Wastewater Pollution Control Authority. However, it's such a critical function for the town, such a critical function for our economic development and growth, and, you know, just for the health and well-being of the community. So to have the wastewater treatment, the WPCA have enough commission members, you know, when we have a project that's going on, and right now they only have 3 members, that's a quorum. That's it. So if one person is sick, and we have to delay taking action on something, you know, that can be a serious impact to developments, to getting approvals, to be able to move projects forward. So I encourage anyone, you know, to definitely reach out. You know, most of our, some of our members have, well, Pat's been on there now for quite some time. And, you know, we were, this commission was the commission that was just recently very devastated by the loss of a very long-term member with Jerry Sinkmeyer. So, and Jerry had been on the commission for
20-some years.
at least 20-some odd years, and had been the chairman for that long, for almost the entire time as well. So, you know, this commission really could definitely use someone from the community that is interested. You don't have to have a wastewater treatment background. They are very willing to take the time to educate and to inform somebody and give somebody the information that they need. So you don't think you have to come in having, you know, a wastewater treatment background or knowing everything about wastewater treatment. They're definitely willing to educate and learn, to teach somebody and grow somebody in those positions. So I think that's important to know.
Mary, when do they meet?
They meet on the 3rd Wednesday of every month at 5 p.m. They've been meeting here because of current COVID protocol, but in a typical scenario, they would be meeting down at the wastewater treatment plant.
Ms. Gloria, I just do have one question. Now, the WPCA is one of the commissions where now actually, I may be wrong on this. I know it came up before, I believe it was charter revision question, where people could serve on 2 commissions.
And they cannot, because that did fail at charter revision. So that was not approved during the charter revision.
Yep.
So you cannot have dual, you cannot serve on 2. The WPCA is an authority. So it's a little bit different than just an average commission. They are a regulatory authority. So in other words, they set user rates for the sewer treatment. So there's a little bit of a different structure than, say, your conservation commission or an advisory commission, right? This is an operational authority. So they're viewed as a utility authority under the statutes. But I will say that group, you know, I've been involved, attended a number of those meetings. Dave is fantastic with bringing information. Our operator brings information to the table as well. We have a contracted operator, and I think they work really hard to be able to bring solid information for the members to be able to make informed decisions on. Which, you know, that's really what you want to be able to do, is have your members be able to take informed decisions. So, you know, it's one of those that, you know, Ed and I have talked about many times. It's not necessarily the most glorious commission. It's not necessarily the one that's out that you see in all the celebrations, but it's a key function. Let's face it. We all want that system to work and work well. So it's just a key thing to think about, especially as we continue to think about economic development and growth. That plant is critical to the town's infrastructure and the town's potential long-term growth.
And even keeping our industrial base, you know, if that goes down.
That's huge.
I don't know what industry would do. I mean, there's been a few times they've done whatever bypasses they've had. There's not a lot of extra capacity down there that they can hold it. They're gonna treat it. And, you know, Frito-Lay, when they're going out with their new expansion and whatnot, they're the biggest contributor to the system. So, I mean, they actually have someone at the meetings, you know, that kind of throws out when they're going down, because they interface if they're shut down for a little while. The the solids and all of that. That's a big difference on the plant.
They're 1/3 of our daily flow and half of our nutrient loading. So if things change at their facility, we need to make quick modifications to our daily operations. in order to meet the discharge permits.
And another impact that our WPCA has is it's not just Killingly, it's Brooklyn. So we have a contract with Brooklyn. We receive Brooklyn sewer as well. And so we treat Brooklyn sewer, which impacts more than just our economic development. It also impacts
Correct.
Brooklyn as well. So, you know, there's a lot of really great information to learn with this, and it's a great opportunity to really learn how a plant like this impacts so many different avenues and areas of communities. So I just encourage people that, you know, if they're looking to get involved with the town, that is definitely a great commission to be involved with.
Thank you. Now, if that charter revision question had passed, is this one of the ones that someone could have served on multiple?
So any of the commissions, they could have served on multiple, provided they didn't have conflicting. So like if somebody were on the Board of Rec and wanted to serve on planning and zoning, they could have. If they wanted to, you know, be on Conservation Commission and serve on the WPCA, they could have, because conservation is not a regulatory. They could not have served on the WPCA and the Planning and Zoning Commission, because those are regulatory bodies, right? So that was that's the identified conflict within the statutes, is those regulatory bodies. But those that are not regulatory, you would have potentially had the opportunity to cross-serve. But that, again, did not pass in that charter revision, and so that is not allowable under our current charter. You are not allowed to serve on multiple boards or commissions, so any of our existing seated commission members would have to come off of their existing commission in order to serve on this commission.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Mr. Wood or Ms. Wakefield?
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you.
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dave, for coming forward.
You're welcome. Thank you all, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, you too. Moving on to the agenda, next item is 7, executive session, and we have none. Following up is 8. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Grandelsi, seconded by Ms. George. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? This meeting is adjourned.